Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey.
It's your president and your VP, and we're back. And we've got a doozy for you guys today.
Yeah.
I know we've said that we were going to cover some other things, but I felt that it was kind of important to do this one today.
Yeah.
Today's episode is A Time to Kill. Premiered July 24th, 1996. It was produced for $40 million, and it grossed over $152 million at the box office.
It's also based off of a 1987 John Grisham novel of the same name. Fun fact, John Grisham, he had two inspirations for the novel. One was of a true trial that happened of two girls who were sexually assaulted by a man, a black man. They were white, so yeah, kind of getting iffy here. And Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes, but John took the elements of said case and mixed it with To Kill a Mockingbird, and we get this.
And he also asked the question, what would happen, basically how he got the idea was, what would happen if the father of those two girls basically took justice into his own hands and killed the guy who did that, and then that's how he created the novel.
Well, he changed it to an African American, and yeah. So, he's also a producer on this movie, so a few things. First of all, the book takes place in fictional Clayton, Mississippi. The movie takes place in
fictional County Ford, Mississippi as well.
The movie takes place in real-life Canton, Mississippi, which is the county seat of the real-life Madison County, Mississippi.
Yeah.
So, it's set in the late 80s, I imagine, and it begins with, I'm going to call them what they are, two rednecks. And, guys, we're as country as they come, but these guys are the epitome of, well, let's just call them what they actually are. White trash rednecks.
Southern white trash rednecks.
Yeah.
That's basically their stereotypical type.
Yeah. And, so they're going around, they're in their truck, they're having a good time.
They have a Confederate flag in their windshield,
And they're yelling racial slurs, and they're terrorizing a little bit the black community there. And at one point, they throw a beer bottle at a basketball goal. And these folks down there, they're just minding their own business. And
you got a couple of boys, they're playing basketball, and they're like, hey!
And they start using the N-word and whatnot. And then it kind of segues a little bit to they're pursuing a little girl. And she's got some groceries. And one of them says, hey, if they're old enough to crawl, that's the right position. Now, guys, as I said, this is a very serious one. And in no way, shape, or form do we condone anything that happened in this movie. Vigilante justice is, of course, wrong. But we're going to get into that. So, the two men then proceed to commit heinous, terrible, horrible things to this little girl. They commit assaults on her. And they throw full beer cans at her.
They just chuck
to the point that it rips the flesh off her body. Mm. And then they urinate on her, And then they string her up. But the branch breaks. The lynching's not complete. So then they drive out to a place called Foggy Creek Bridge. And they hurl her off the bridge. And she falls 30 feet. But she's alive. She survives.
Yeah, it's
the sheriff of the county, who happens to be black as well, he comes into the bar where the two rednecks are hanging out. And he tells them that, you made a mistake, she lived, and they found their shoe in his pickup, and they get ready they arrest him, and one of them is, he's scared. He's scared out of his mind. The other one is a stone cold psychopath.
Well, I also remember that, like, the guy's like, oh, you don't have the guts to arrest me, Sheriff. Takes a drink of his bottle, and then the sheriff's like, boom! The bottle's right to his face, and then he starts choking him.
Starts choking him out. Little bit of justified police brutality. Now,
that's a joke.
That's
a joke.
That's a
YouTube,
joke.
That's a joke. Please don't take this video down. That's a joke.
Police brutality is, of course, not cool, and it's never justified. Police officers definitely can't take the law into their own hands either. And we do have a serious issue in this country involving police brutality. But having said that, yeah, they take the two away, and they're in jail, and one of them signs a confession saying that he did it, and that he did it with the other guy. The one that was crying and scared. The other one, of course, like I said, is a stone-cold psychopath. Doesn't show any remorse, any
his
kind
brother,
of...
His brother also happens to be a closeted KKK member.
Later. Not at first. But is extremely racist. Extremely racist. So, the man, the little girl's father, the little girl's name is Tanya, and the father is Carl Lee Haley, and he's played by Samuel L. Jackson. And he goes to Mr. Brigance, who is played by Matthew McConaughey. This is an all-star cast, guys, and they're all giving it their all. They're all so good in their performances. Everybody, even the ones who are scary psychopaths, because there's a bunch of them. We'll get to that. So he asks him, "What would you do? You know, what should I do?" And he tells him, I'm gonna kill them, basically. He's like, I'm gonna kill them. And Mr. Brigance really doesn't take him seriously. So like the next day at the courthouse, Carl Lee guns said perpetrators down. Cold blood.
Yeah.
Cold blood. And wounds a police officer, a deputy in the process. Man, the deputy loses his leg. Okay? And as all this is going down, we are introduced to the prosecuting attorney, who's played by Kevin Spacey. And guys, I know how a lot of you feel about Kevin Spacey, and I understand some of the things that have happened, but that's neither here nor there. We're judging solely on acting performance here, and nothing else that was involved ever, okay? And his performance in this movie is great. So anyways, like I said, prosecuting attorney, he's going to try to find a way to win this case. He knows that the other side, Mr. Brigance, is very inexperienced and very young, and his mentor is a alcoholic drunk who is, you know, the typical activist, so to speak, is that he believes in equal rights and all that, and that's great. I do too. So anyways, Lucian is the name of Mr. Brigance's mentor, and he's played by Donald Sutherland. And this is kind of key, guys, in many ways, okay? Because the brother of one of the psychopaths is played by Kiefer Sutherland, okay? And Donald Sutherland plays Lucian, his father. So they're on opposite sides of, say, conflict here. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic that Joel Schumacher went with that way, which he was the director. Go ahead.
Also, I would like to point out, before we get more into this, I've realized that in the past in our channels, we never really talk about the cinematography.
Yeah.
We need to talk about this, and we need to talk about it in this film.
Yes. There are quite a few scenes that are very brilliantly lit, and it's got, I will say this, the film is kind of a down and dirty, grimy type of film. But it's supposed to be.
Just like the book would be.
Yeah. So, Mr. Brigance goes to his advisor, and he's going to accept the case because now he has to kind of defend Carl Lee. And one of the reasons why he defends Carl Lee is because he feels guilty because he didn't say anything about what was going to happen. Well, you know, Keeper's character, he is burying his brother and the other one, and he makes a remark about how I can't say the word. You know, I won't say that word. But he makes a certain racial remark and says that should be dead. Okay?
10 years ago, that N word would be strung up by his.
Yeah. And they mentioned that the Klan, if the Klan were involved, and guys, you guys know what I mean by the Klan. Okay? If they were involved, none of this would be going down. So one of them tells them that he knows a guy who knows a guy. And it sets up a meeting with Stumpy Sisson, who is played by Kurtwood Smith. And guys, let me tell you something. He's pretty evil. And the way they shot it with the shadow covering like half his body, you really got the connotation right away that he was evil. But of course he is. He's the Grand Wizard of the state of Mississippi at this time. Okay? And in no way, shape, or form do we endorse any activities by the Ku Klux Klan. I'll go ahead and say that. We live actually not that far from the headquarters of one of them. And yeah, it's kind of an uneasy experience in some ways. I don't really think about it too much. But
the thing is, they don't really come up into Branson that often. They're usually in Zinc and Harrison. So.
Yeah, but there have been, I will say this, there have been isolated instances in the last few years of them like papering Hollister and stuff. They found like Klan, you know, I don't know what they call them, but when they paper the lawns and stuff.
Yeah. Klan propaganda, basically.
Yeah. That has happened in these parts.
I'm gonna call it what it was. Klan propaganda.
Exactly.
And it was like, so. Sorry to get off topic here, but a while back ago, I actually heard from a friend of mine that some BLM activists, it gets good, came through Harrison of all places. And it was literally the worst thing they could do because immediately they were trying to get the heck out of there.
Well, yeah and no, because, guys, in this part of the country where we live in Branson, Missouri, of course. It's pretty inviting and people are pretty welcoming here. But like he says, you go like 30 miles south into Arkansas and it's a different story.
Yeah.
Okay. But getting back on the topic, he meets up with the Grand Wizard, of course, and they mention that they can start what's called a clavern. And for those of you who don't know what a clavern is, it's basically a Ku Klux Klan chapter. You know, no different than a club chapter, so to speak, in that regard.
Kind of like if you look at the show Sons of Anarchy, you kind of get more of an explanation of that, which we should do, by the way. Totally.
Yeah, so at some point. Like I said, though, guys, so they set up the Klan in Canton now, and things are starting to escalate. And they go to pre-trial, and Sandra Bullock is playing this, let's call her what she is. She's a legal intern. And she helps him be able to make an appeal for a change of venue based on a Supreme Court law. And the judge at first is like very, very...
towards the prosecuting side.
Yeah, he's very lenient towards the prosecuting side. And it continues, and as things are happening, you know, because it's becoming clearer and clearer that the Matthew McConaughey, Mr. Brigance, is not just some idiot lawyer, that he's got some resources and some skills, and he brings Lucian in to help him. And he's got his buddy who's kind of like a shady ambulance chaser type of lawyer.
Yeah.
Let's call him what he is. That's what he is. Played by Oliver Platt, who's helping him along the way, too. And the Klan then start using their typical terrorist methods, guys. They use the burning cross.
Yeah.
They attempt to bomb the man's home. And at one point, he grabs Mr. Brigance, he grabs the bomb, and he throws it away from his house. I mean, I'm going to say it, that's pretty badass, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree.
You know, what would you do? You know, that's his home. And then a little bit later, there's a horrible scene where they burn his house to the ground. And things are continuing to escalate.
Don't forget about the big town square fight.
Yes. There's one point...
You forgot about that, and that's why I'm here to keep you into that.
There's one point...
It's a very crucial scene.
Where the Grand Dragon shows up in his clan uniform, and they're protesting with everybody, and there's a skirmish.
And then there's an African American boy who has a Molotov cocktail, lights it, and then he chucks it at the Grand Dragon, and then he burns to death.
They roasted him alive.
And then I'm thinking to myself, how lucky could that boy be to say that he got to burn the Grand Dragon of the KKK alive to death?
And he pretty much got away with it.
Yeah, he got away with it too.
But it's like, when I saw that, I was like, you know, because I was not prepared for that. Okay? So, like I said, things are escalating, and they're bringing out their witnesses. And one of them is this, because they're going for an insanity plea here. Now, obviously, he wasn't insane. Okay? Let's get that right out in the open. He wasn't. He wasn't at all. He knew what he was doing. But I got to ask you guys something. Out there, fathers, what would you do if you were in that situation? If you had saw that, if you had witnessed that? I'll tell you,
and the thing
I would probably do the exact same thing that Carl Lee did if somebody hurt my kid like that.
The thing is a scene that makes it like really hits deep is later on when the two prosecutors are cross-examining Carl Lee. And he's basically recounting the event and how his daughter cried for him multiple times. And he wasn't there to save her. And it just like...
But yeah, there are certain parts.
Deep into his
and
heart.
I need to talk about the secretary. You know, Mr. Brigance's secretary.
Oh, yeah.
Her husband suffers an incredible beating at the hands of the Klan.
And he dies from it.
All because they want to help. No, he doesn't die. She takes him to Oxford, remember?
Oh, yeah.
But they keep escalating. And I know that we're doing this at a time when tensions are very high, but you guys know us by now. We talk about things like this.
Remember during the whole George Floyd riots, we covered Mississippi burning, guys, and we didn't get banned off of YouTube from that. So this shouldn't be any different.
You know, it is an incredible, incredible movie, guys. And like I said, okay, they bring out the psychiatrist, and the one psychiatrist from the prosecutor side, he's testified. And it's revealed that he's testified in 46 cases. And in all 46 cases, he deemed them to be legally sane. Except the fact that the intern digs up dirt on him. And proves that one of them was found legally insane by the jury after he had said that he was insane. And they committed said schizophrenic, that's what he was, paranoid schizophrenic. They committed him to Whitfield. And guess who just happened to be his psychiatrist? The doctor that was on the stand, that's who.
Yeah, and then the defendant, they get another doctor who legally proves that Mr. Haley at the time was not legally in the right state of mind.
However, the prosecutor is able to prove that he was a convicted felon.
But then that even goes on to bite him back, because turns out that same woman that he got with because he was convicted of statutory rape, he also later on then married and then had kids with.
Yeah. So it might have been a case of like,
Parents didn't...
boyfriend, girlfriend, let something get too far, parents find out. This kind of thing does happen, guys. It does.
Yeah.
So anyways, I do need to bring up the testimony of the deputy. You see, a deputy was shot and had his leg amputated because he was caught in the crossfire. Like a ricochet bullet hit him in his kneecap, and he had to have his leg amputated. And Carl Lee apologized for what happened. And it seems to be a very damning piece of evidence until Carl Lee asked Mr. Brigance to ask him, did he think it was intentional? So he asked him, do you think it was intentional? And he says, no, sir. I don't blame him. It was an accident. Then he says, ask him if he thinks that I deserve to die or be convicted. And he asked him, he says, no, sir. I have a little girl. I would have done the exact same thing. And that's a pretty damning piece of evidence in the favor of the...
And then it was by the way, this was the prosecutor's witness.
Yeah.
And then they tell him to silence their own witness, and it's like
all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
To use the phrase. And it's a big thing. And like I said, there's a big thing in the streets. And they're fighting with each other. And they're protesting left and right. And we had already mentioned all these events that had happened. And Kiefer's character attempts to assassinate Mr. Brigance. He attempts to assassinate him by a sniper after the Grand Dragon had been roasted to death.
Oh yeah, and because of that fight in the streets, the governor of Mississippi brought in the National Guard to Canton.
Yeah, it was a big thing. So everything's kind of spiraling out of control. He's lost his house. He had to send his wife and kid away because of the bomb. His intern is attacked. She's beaten and tied out in the woods.
And she's saved by a guy with a Mickey Mouse tattoo,
who happens to be an informant.
Yeah,
he's kind of helping the sheriff's department.
Yeah, because at first he's the one who told that somebody was going to die tonight, and that was because of the bomb. Then beforehand, he said you need to get out of your house now because it may burn, and it was because of the cross.
Yeah. I don't know if he was actually like in the Klan and he was having reservations or what, but yeah. Anyways, he saves the intern and takes her to the hospital. And, Mr. Brigance, he's having some severe conflictions with all this because he has to keep going, He has to see it through the end. He has to get the guy off. And the reason why that Carl Lee actually picked him is because of the fact that the man wasn't him. He was on that other side. And it's something that happens even today, guys, that there's a wall, And it's like he puts it. There's a wall, and you're on one side of it, and I'm on the other. Because people too often today, even today, more often than not, see color. The shade of melanin, and it shouldn't be that way. I firmly believe that we are all human beings in this world. We all have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands, etc., etc.
Alright, I'm gonna speed this up here. So basically, then they get to the final argument.
Yeah.
And then Matthew McConaughey's character makes this incredible speech where he basically tells the jury to close his eyes as he tells them a story.
The story of a little girl
who's walking down a road on a sunny afternoon. And then a truck comes racing by. And then they kidnap her. And then they tie her down. And then not really going to get into the rest because
it's bad.
If I get into the rest, then this will definitely be flagged by YouTube and then it will be taken down.
It's bad, guys. But hey, like I said, they end up winning. And he invites or he comes to the celebratory barbecue, does Mr. Brigance, and he brings his child with him because of the whole speech where Samuel L. Jackson's character had told him that, you know, we ain't going to be the same, and our children aren't going to play together, and you probably don't even know where I live, and all of that. So he brings his daughter over, and he just says, I thought our children could play together. And that's how it ends. Now, okay, final rating for myself. It's definitely a 5 out of 5, guys. What say you?
5 out of 5.
Now, of course, as always, if you've seen A Time to Kill and you think that it is the worst movie that was ever made and nobody should ever watch it, ever,
Then you're clearly from Rotten Tomatoes, and you're wrong.
you're wrong. But hey, as always, just remember, we're just two idiots with a cell phone camera. Our opinions do not matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So guys, having said all that, yeah, we wanted to do this one today. I really wanted to do it and wanted to get it out there for you guys and give you our thoughts and opinions on it. And so we'll get what we promised before out in the near future. And
Possibly one more today, because we have that lamp.
Possibly one more. A book review.
A book review.
So guys, I guess that's about it for this one, and there's nothing left to say except peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye!